those of you that don't know, Sword Art Online is my favorite anime. My favorite season is the GGO spin-off. So when I heard that they were making a Sword Art Online video game that takes place in Gun Gale Online, I was pretty excited. Other SAO games like Lost Song and Hollow Realization were pretty disappointing. Fatal Bullet was a nice change of pace, but that doesn't mean that this game doesn't have any hiccups. As a shooting game, the combat in SAO Fatal Bullet is pretty easy to understand. As a JRPG, it's gonna be a little difficult for beginners. For starters, there is the assist mode that automatically targets enemies that show up within the square that shows up on the screen. However, the assist mode is pretty much useless if you use iron sights. But if you're an old school kind of guy when it comes to shooting games, the assist mode can be turned off on the fly. But for this game, I prefer having assist mode on because this game is difficult as in Destiny level kind of difficult. Well, if you're playing on normal or extreme difficulty anyway, the easy argument is that enemies deal a lot of damage or they have a lot of health. And things like medkits, grenades, or throwing knives can only be used when you unequip your guns. But to be honest, that kind of makes the combat a little bit deeper. And there is a bit of strategy to be had in the combat as well. For example, your party members, they can be pretty useful when they're not being dumb. Zaliska, you don't stand out in the open like that, you idiot! As for the enemies, they have their own strengths and weaknesses. For example, automatons, facsimiles, or enemy players can be damaged more when you aim for the head. Flying drones can be damaged more when you aim for their eye. A turret's weakness are the heating vents that are located on their backs. There are so many variables in the combat that it would take me like 1 or 2 hours to explain it all. Sadly though, the combat isn't what's gonna take up most of your time in this game. A huge chunk of this game is filled with conversations and cutscenes. And the voice dialogue is entirely in Japanese, so you're practically forced to read everything. Unless, you do understand Japanese. Thankfully, it does give you the option to skip conversations and cutscenes, but if you want to understand what's going on, you have to watch all of them. There were a few conversations that I really didn't mind reading, and there is a little bit of humor sprinkled in every now and then. A lot of these conversations involve characters from the anime, as well as characters from previous games, and new characters from this game. I even tried talking to some of the not-so-important characters that just hang around in the lobby. But none of them have anything interesting to say, and others say stuff that just doesn't make sense. First we gather information, that should go without saying. You do best not to neglect your preparations either. What? No, you're amazing. No, I'm sorry, I couldn't help it. I saw the rankings. I was so impressed. The best thing just happened to me. I bet you want to hear about it now, don't you? What? You don't? Oh, okay. Bye then. Excuse me? You think you can just walk up and start talking to me like that? Wait, I didn't mean it. It's just habit. I'm too quick to insult, I know. Basically, a lot of the conversations are a huge snooze fest. However, there is one factor about this game that I bet you would have never figured out. Go ahead, take a guess. I'll wait. Okay, you guys are so slow. It's that this game is secretly a dating simulator. You guys know how in the anime, Kirito seems to be some sort of giant harem magnet?
Well, the chick magnet's got another girlfriend.
Well, in this game, Kirito is not the only harem magnet. You are also a harem magnet. And those of you that have seen my Q&A from a while back know exactly how I feel about harems. What is your least favorite cliche in anime? Harems.
Plus the freaking damsel in distress moments.
They're stupid. So, I'm not particularly fond of your custom character being another chick magnet. Also, this game is, like, theatrically wrong about how dates are supposed to go. I mean, after your first date, you don't just immediately get in bed with who you went out with. That is not right. But really, this is how far this game goes. I mean, I would really hate to see something else that I hate to see in an anime, like a damsel in distress moment. Oh my heck, you have got to be kidding me! Well, this had better be it. This has got to be the worst possible thing that can happen in this game. I mean, this is it, right? There's nothing worse than this, right? Oh my freaking crap. I stand corrected. The story is nothing special to write home about. You are the main protagonist. You can make your own character, which is cool, by the way. You, on the very first day that you play GGO, get a registered AI partner called an Arphasis, which is extremely rare, but you get it by pure dumb luck. But what exactly is she? That's where our journey begins. And also Kirito and the others show up. I do, however, appreciate the fact that Kirito and his friends are more of side protagonists than the main protagonists. I mean, this game is mostly all about you. There is a point in the game where you unlock something called Kirito mode, where you play as Kirito in a smaller side story that kind of takes place in the middle of the main story, but I'm not gonna go too into depth about that because Kirito mode is basically recreating everything that happened in the GGO arc of Season 2 of the anime. But I probably should have listened to that warning that pops up right before the final main quest, because the dating and Kirito mode is basically forced upon you. It wasn't until the end of the game that I realized that there's more than one ending. There's 3 endings to this game, and only one of them is good. If you don't know what you're doing, you end up with a bad ending. That means after the 40 or 50 hours you've put sinking your teeth into this game, you need to make sure that you know what you're doing, otherwise you're gonna end up with a face full of tears. Not just because of how sad the 2 bad endings are. You're also gonna have to put at least another good 10, maybe 15 hours of grinding into this game. The first thing you need to do to unlock the true ending is to watch all of the dating cutscenes. The only way to unlock all of these cutscenes is to increase the affinity levels of your party members. You increase affinity levels by going out, completing quests, and reviving your teammates if they ever get knocked down. I wouldn't have too much of a problem with it if it didn't take forever. I even had to buy an item from Argo the Informer called a Nostalgic Echo that makes raising affinity a little bit easier, but it still takes forever. I ended up going out and fighting the same boss fight over and over and over again just to raise my affinity level, until I eventually got bored and decided to let my party members die over and over so that I can revive them over and over and over, because reviving your teammates is the best way to raise affinity. Not every character in the game has to have maxed out affinity, but most of them do. And these are all the characters that need to have maxed out affinity. Your Arphasis partner, Kuriha, Zeliska, Premier, Philia, Rain, Stria, Basalt Joe, Itsuki, Asuna, Lifa, Xenon, Lisbeth, Silica, Yuki, and Argo. 16 of your party members need to have maxed affinity. And affinity grinding takes way longer than it needs to because you can only take 3 party members at a time. And you need to finish your affinity grinding and watch all of the dating cutscenes before you complete the quest called Mother Claudia. If you don't, then you're gonna get one of the bad endings. Plus, there are 3 small side quests that you need to complete. You need to have Asuna make you an outfit, Aegil appraise an item, and Lisbeth enhance one of your weapons. The second thing you need to do to get the true ending is to complete Kirito mode, which, again, is thankfully short. The third thing you need to do is watch all of Kirito's affinity cutscenes. Thankfully, you don't have to do any affinity grinding in Kirito mode if you did all of the affinity grinding with your custom character, because your affinity levels stay the same in both modes. But that doesn't mean Kirito's affinity cutscenes are not any less bearable. If you go past this message without completing Kirito mode or watching all of his affinity cutscenes, then you're gonna end up with one of the bad endings. If the final main quest is titled Fatal Bullet, then you're on the right track. The last thing you need to do to get the true ending is to make sure that you keep stunning the final boss. The only way to do that is to keep hitting its weak spot, which is the core in the center of its chest. The reason why you want to do this is to make sure that the final boss doesn't fire its hyper beam attack. If the final boss manages to fire its hyper beam attack before you stun it, you're still gonna end up with a bad ending. If you manage to keep the boss from firing its hyper beam during the first phase of the fight, then you're pretty much home free. And let me tell ya, it was so satisfying to finally get the good ending. Sword Art Online Fatal Bullet isn't a bad game, but what really dumbed it down was all the requirements for getting the good ending and the excessive amount of cutscenes. Not all of the cutscenes are bad, but they're not all good either. The fact of your custom character being a harem magnet is not very satisfying to me, and all of the required grinding and cutscenes to watch made this game longer than it should be. But the combat is fun, and I loved all the run-ins with familiar characters.
Now that she's yours, she needs a name.
Am I supposed to give my gun a name?
Yeah, of course.
What is this, second grade? I'm not giving my gun a name. Okay, fine. Scorch. That's my gun's name, Scorch. Sword Art Online is amazing, but Zeliska is still teasing. Watching cutscenes, it's a bore. Getting the true ending is such a chore. This game sometimes is too easy. Something, something, lemon squeezy. This entire song is super cheesy. And dating still makes me rather queasy. Not everything in this game is bad, but all the grinding is kinda sad. I really don't know where this game has been, so I'm gonna have to give it a 7 out of 10.